Alright, so I did mine paper and everything on schooling for the deaf. And so there's 5 different schooling types. There's preschooling, which is just early education programs for like younger kids from 3 to 4. And then you have residential schooling. That's for like students that live on campus, kind of like college, but for the deaf. And it goes from like all grade levels. And so it has its pros and cons. So students be around more deaf members and get a full like deaf culture experience and everything. But the downside is like they're away from their family, and you know they could feel like as if they're isolated from their family. And then there's oral signing day school. So it's where you're focusing on like, it's basically regular school, but for the deaf as well. And so you're around the deaf culture, but you're still not necessarily like, it could not be around your like housing and all that stuff. So you could have to travel far, or you could have to move for it. So it's not always like, what's the word? Local. Like not everyone has a deaf school across the street. Accessible. And then there's mainstreaming, which is just public schools. And so like you're going to school with a bunch of hearing students as well, so that could have its perks and downsides. So basically you're still living at home, which is a perk, like you can still be with your family and friends. But downside is like you're the only deaf member like in the school you could be, so some downsides, you could feel isolated, you could feel like out of the loop. You could not be able to connect with your professors, your teachers, your classmates, and all that. So that's kind of not fun. And then there's always the homeschooling environment. I mean, homeschool kids, they get the same thing. So you're being taught by your parents. And some of the downsides of this could be you have to pay for special tutors if your parents don't know how to do it. Your parents could have to quit their job or something to be at home with you for schooling and all that. So it's kind of has its perks and downsides. So then these are the top 5 schools for the deaf. Gallaudet University, which is in Washington, D.C. And then we have National Technology Institute for the Deaf, and that is in New York. And then we have Southwest College Institute for the Deaf, and that is in Texas. And then we have 2 foreign countries, and both of these schools are in the United Kingdom and Japan. And then we have the Milan Conference of 1880. This is one of the it's like a conference that really impacted deaf education. So basically what happened was this conference met and decided how the deaf students and schooling should teach the deaf. And basically how they felt was they should focus on oral learning compared to signing learning, which I just think is wrong. But so out of 164 people, only 2 of the people were deaf. So how is only 2 people supposed to impact how the deaf is supposed to be learned? And there was 8 resolutions. These are the 8. And basically they're just listing off like why they did it and everything. So like the oral method, they wanted to focus on, you needed books for it, you needed teachers for it, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a whole different curriculum. I think that's the word, right? Yeah. And then these were some of the negative impacts. So we have it decreased the success for deaf community members. So prior to the year 1880, there was successful deaf politicians, teachers, writers, artists, lawyers, educators, and all that. And then once this law was made, it was a huge decrease because all those people spoke sign language. So yeah, it just decreased. And then deaf teachers increased, which I think has a huge impact on education in general, because I feel that students should be able to communicate with the teacher. And if you have a hearing teacher and you can't hear, how are you supposed to make bonds, connections, and everything? If you can't sign to them, how are you supposed to communicate? And if you can't create a bond with them, then you're not really going to learn as well, or you're not going to enjoy going to school. And then, finally, this was taken away in 1970. And one of the main quotes I wanted to focus on is William Stroke. He said, "Signing is a true language," which I completely agree with. They didn't sign up to be deaf. So how are we supposed to take away the only language they communicate? And I mean, the sign language has a huge impact on how they express their feelings, their emotions, everything. So the fact that the Milan Conference of 1880 took it away is just wrong, and I'm glad it's not there anymore. And the end.